So our speaker this evening is a lovely lady called Lucy Grody, and she works for the Association of Sail Training Organisations. And her presentation tonight is going to be about careers and opportunities available to you guys in her industry. So I'll pass over to you, Lucy.
Great, thank you very much. Thank you for the introduction. Hello, good evening, everybody. So I've been asked to talk about sail training, careers and opportunities. Thank you very much for the invitation. Hopefully it'll be interesting. I've put lots of pictures of boats in because I like boats, and hopefully that's interesting for you guys as well. Okay, so a little bit about me. My name's Lucy Grody, General Manager of ASTO, Association of Sail Training Organisations. I'll explain what that is in a little bit. First thing about me is that I used to be a sea cadet. So let's see if the sharing works. There we go. So I used to skipper City Liveryman, which is no longer in service actually as a sea cadet vessel. I was skipper of this fine ship from 2007 to 2010. She's a lovely 35-foot yacht, so we used to take 5 cadets and we used to have 2 adults on board. That was my full-time job for about 3 years. Before that, I worked on board other sail training vessels as mate and skipper, and also as a sailing instructor, altogether for about 10 years that I went to sea on sailing vessels. Now, as I said, I'm general manager of ASTO, so I'm shore-based now. So the job these days looks more like this. I give talks and presentations, and this is from our annual sail training conference. So I'll talk a bit more about that. And it's a fantastic thing. So hopefully I'll talk a lot about what sail training does for people, for young people's confidence. Perhaps some of you guys have taken part on board the Sea Cadet vessels, on board the power boats or the yachts, or on Royalist. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. And then specifically, I'll talk about what careers might be open for you guys if you think that sounds like something you might enjoy. Okay, so sail training, what is it really? Now, slightly confusing, when I say sail training, I don't mean learning how to sail or indeed teaching how to sail. So in this sector, sail training, we use that to mean learning life skills on board a large residential vessel. So actually, the power boats are also sail training. You're still on a large vessel, you're living on board it. So there's quite a large sector of boats that do this around the UK with lots of types of young people. And the point isn't really to learn how to sail, but the point is you're learning lots of things about yourself. You might stretch your comfort zone, you might learn new skills, you might learn that you're better than you thought you were at some things that looked maybe a bit daunting. You might learn that you love the outdoors. You might discover that people you weren't really so keen on back on land, actually you've got loads in common. So it's about the wider package, and on board we're not just sailing, but we're living together on board. So we have to keep the boat neat and tidy, we have to cook, we have to make sure everybody's warm, dressed properly for the weather, keep them well fed, make sure you get enough sleep, so all kinds of things. And that's where the sort of life skills thing comes in. So the official definition that ASTO uses for sail training is this here. So yes, to advance education in the art of seamanship, that's the learning how to sail part. But much more important to us is the bit above, the responsibility, resourcefulness, loyalty and team endeavour. So that's what we're about. Learning, responsibility, resourcefulness is you know, problem solving, using what you've got available to make the best of it. Loyalty and team endeavour, some of those are very similar to the Sea Cadet aims as well, I think. So it's all about being the best person you can be, really. Okay, so here are some of those skills you learn on a sail training vessel. Notice again, sailing isn't really part of it, even though you do learn that. But these are the things we're really after. So problem solving, communication, self-discipline. So some of that, for example, you might need to go on watch on deck, even though it's cold and wet, but it's your turn because other people have been out there for 2 hours. Now it's your turn to look after the vessel. So that's important. Confidence, you definitely gain in confidence from learning new things, learning skills you didn't think you had. Adventure, teamwork, resilience, that's again overcoming things when things are tough, you keep going. But it is fun as well. It's not just all hard work and toughness. It's great fun on a sail training vessel. So types of vessel, the UK fleet has all types of different boats, and it doesn't really matter what type of boat, whether it's a modern boat like the one with the white hull in front. That's the Rona 2 from Rona Sailing Project, or whether it's a traditional boat, which is Johanna Lucretia, the one with the dark hull in the background going the other way. That is a topsail schooner. She's about 80 years old. Doesn't really matter what type of boat, because they all need teamwork and communication to get them sailing. There's nothing automated on these vessels. Yeah, so to get the sails up, you have to all pull together. No automatic winches or anything like that. So as you can see from these two young people hauling a rope together to get the sail up. And same on here, this must be a bigger sail because they've got more people on there. Communication, you can see the girl at the front is probably shouting some encouragement and telling them when to haul on the ropes. So voyages on board sail training vessels, normally between 4 and 6 days. I think the Sea Cadet voyages are normally about 6 days. It does depend on what the group wants, whether that is a school group or other types of youth groups. Hang on a sec. Sorry, there we go. Here again, a bit of teamwork on a traditional vessel this time. So lots of different types of groups come sail training, mostly young people under 25. So for the Sea Cadets, I believe it's from 12 upwards. You can go on the offshore vessels, and 13 and a half on the sailing vessels. Most other organizations that do sail training will have 12 as the sort of youngest age and 25 as the oldest. The types of group they take sailing is cadets, for example, Sea Cadets, scouts, other types of youth groups. Then there are school groups. There are maybe young carers, young people who have to look after people who are ill, maybe siblings of ill children, maybe young people who have been excluded from school. And this is a different type of activity that they might find suits them much better. You know, you don't have to sit still at a desk, but you can be outdoors and get some exercise in the fresh air. Young people maybe that have left school early and are not in training. So all types of groups can sail on board sail training vessels. Also all abilities, and most of our vessels will take people with disabilities as well. So obviously there's some restrictions for mobility, for example, if you use a wheelchair. But most of our vessels can take visually impaired young people, deaf young people, people with autism, Asperger's, any sort of abilities. And the nice thing, I'll talk about that a bit again later, is that you can tailor the voyage depending on the group that's coming sailing. So if you've got a young group of fairly young people who are quite low in self-confidence, let's say, then you can have a fairly gentle start, and you can do short day sails and stop off, anchor somewhere nice, go to the beach, go for a nice walk, to sort of slowly build up their confidence. If you've got a group that are really keen and almost a bit too boisterous and a bit too confident of themselves, then you can take them out for a really long sail and maybe do an overnight sail, which is a bit more challenging, to really push them. And that's the right sort of thing for that type of group. So that's the great thing, that you can tailor what you're doing on board to the type of group you've got, and you can build it up slowly. So maybe the less confident young people, at the end of the week, they'll also be up for a longer trip. Okay, so as I mentioned already earlier, usually voyages are 4 to 6 days long. Different sizes of vessels, so there's different sizes of groups. So for example, the one in the foreground here with the sort of fish symbol on the sail, that's Discovery, and she takes 6 to 8 young people and has 3 adults on board. And the more traditional vessel in the background, the 2-masted Ketch, that is Queen Galadriel, and they take groups of up to 16 young people, and they would have 4 adults on board. So different sizes of groups, different numbers of grown-ups, and I'll come to that later. The adults are usually a mixture of paid staff and volunteer staff. So both of those, I'm sure, are interesting for you guys, but I'll give a bit more emphasis on the paid opportunities later on. Okay, so again, the young people do everything on board. So at the start, they don't need to know anything about sailing. They join, they get very thorough safety briefings. They get a very thorough walkthrough where all the safety equipment is, how the cooker works, where the fire extinguishers are, where their bunks are, all that kind of stuff. And I'm not quite sure, sorry, something just disappeared. I'm not quite sure if I'm still here, but I'll just carry on.
Yeah, you're still here.
I'm still here, thank you. Thank you. Suddenly my view changed, but there we are. Okay, great. So this is just a recap of what I mentioned already, types of groups that come sailing. Okay, so that's what's sail training. That was quite a lengthy explanation, but it all feeds into what are the opportunities for careers and jobs. So before I move on to careers and jobs, there are, of course, opportunities for you guys to take part as young people on these voyages. So I've already mentioned the Sea Cadet offshore vessels, but you can take part on all manner of other types of boats. So if you like the look of any of those boats that you saw there, they're all available. Even you either come as a group or you can book on as an individual as well, sometimes during the summer holidays. Okay, so what's ASTO? ASTO, the organisation I run, sometimes goes by the name UK Sail Training as well. So we're the umbrella body for sail training organisations in the UK, which means that we're a support body. So most of the other organisations that run these large sail training vessels are charities. There's about 33 of them all around the UK. I'll show you a map in a moment. And between them, they have more than 50 vessels. So this is anything from the size of the Sea Cadet Rustlers, so like 40 foot, 42 foot, with 5 young people on board, right up to the size of Tenacious, which is a 3-masted square-rigged vessel. They take 48 people on board. That particular one actually is able to be accessed by wheelchair users as well. So anyone, even with physical disabilities and mobility issues, can take part and sail on board. So between them, the fleet takes about 10,000 young people to sea every year, and an additional 2,000 people with disabilities. And that's mostly in the summer sailing season in the UK, which is from April to October. As you can imagine, this time of year, it's usually either too cold or too stormy to actually go out sailing. So they don't tend to sail from October to April. So the fleet is spread out all around the UK. This is a map of our member organisations. Bearing in mind, this is where they're based. So the boats will quite often do voyages from other locations as well. They won't just start and finish at their home port, but they'll sail around the UK as well. Okay, so that's a really nice picture just of the variety of the fleet. So in the foreground, that's either City of London or Stelios. I can't currently tell them apart. In the foreground, sailing straight at us, but then in the background, that is Tenacious, 3-masted square-rigged ship. And you guys can volunteer and work and sail on any of these. So I'll come to that next. So bear with me, I may have to do a bit of changing of the layout here, but I thought it'd be nice to see somebody else talking for a minute. So I'll give you a view of a chap who sails with us, if it works.
You might need
Bear
to
with
go
me
to the
one
normal view
second.
for that one.
Yeah, hang on a sec. Let me see if I can change that. Okay, how's that? Is that better?
Perfect, yeah.
Yeah, okay, great. Let's try that.
No, we're not getting sound, unfortunately. If you stop share and then reshare, and there should be a little checkbox that says sound.
Okay, sorry about that.
No, it's fine.
Hang on a second. Where would I find share sound? Got it. Okay. Try again.
My name's Jack. I am the second mate or watch leader on board this boat Prolific this week for the Asto Small Ships race. I've been involved in sail training since about 2014 and kind of starting out on John Lang, which was Ocean Youth Trust South's boat before Prolific, and was involved as a trustee and as the third mate as a bosun, and have done kind of a lot of training with OYT South as well as working with them on various other bits and bobs over the years. But it's so great to kind of, after the pandemic, have everyone back, everyone able to see each other, see friends that we haven't seen in a long time, and hopefully enjoy some nice weather along the way. I think it's an opportunity to almost have like a little floating family sometimes, in that you're able to kind of connect with people that maybe you probably wouldn't come across in everyday life. And actually, you know, I've learned an awful lot of stuff from young people over the years as well. So I think it's just as much a learning and beneficial experience for them as it has been for me.
And once.
Oh, sorry. Go back to the other screen. Okay, just bear with me a second. Okay, so that was Jack. So Jack sails as a volunteer watch leader with Ocean Youth Trust. And as you heard, has done lots of things and really enjoys it. The one thing to mention with Jack, you can't tell, but he's blind in one eye. So that hasn't stopped him doing anything at all. Right. Carry on. Okay. Hopefully, sorry, Catherine, can I just check, is that back to the normal PowerPoint view?
Yeah, we can see.
Yeah, great. Okay, excellent, thank you. Okay, so what jobs are there in sail training? So all the adults that are working on board the boats, I did mention some of them are volunteers, but quite a lot of them are full-time employees. So I figured that amongst the whole fleet of sail training vessels in the UK, there's about 90 full-time jobs, 90, which is fantastic. There's about that many volunteer roles as well that need filling every week. So even if after this you decide sail training isn't for you as a full-time job, then you may want to consider coming back and doing it as a volunteer 1 or 2 weeks a year. That is what I do these days, even though I'm shore-based. I still sail about 3 weeks a year with these vessels. Mostly seafaring jobs. So skipper or captain on the bigger vessels, mate, engineer, bosun and cook are some of the opportunities. But there are also shore-based jobs within sail training. So the organisation running the boats. So the chief exec, general manager, perhaps the operations manager, fundraisers and booking staff in the office. There's a really nice progression in sail training that a lot of people decide to stay in it, but they might not stay at sea full time. So they might do like I did, they might go to sea for 10 years or so, and then they might come ashore, but are still very heavily involved in the industry, in the sail training industry, and go back as volunteers as and when they can. So the natural progression really for lots of people is that you might start as a young person, you might have done a voyage as a young person, and you might have really enjoyed it. So with the Sea Cadets, same as any organizations, if they think someone's really enjoyed it and they might be good at this, they will get invited back, and they will get an opportunity to come back and train and start learning on the job initially. So they would just learn on board the boat. They would get taught by somebody else who's already working on board the boat, who would teach them what they need to do. So quite often there are watch leader roles that are sort of for junior, younger people coming back. There are bosun roles that can be for younger people coming back. So bosun is helping maintain and fix things on the boat as well. On Royalist, it's a much more formal role. They fix the sails and the rigging as well. But on some of the smaller vessels, the bosun would be a volunteer who perhaps helps the engineer to do the daily checks, that sort of thing. Okay, so you could end up as the skipper of a modern boat like this one. You could end up as the engineer perhaps on a vessel like this. Now, even though they're sailing boats, they do still have engines to get them in and out of port, and they have all kinds of other engineering stuff on board. So they've got generators, they've got fridges that run on their own small generators. They've got the sanitation system is electric and needs maintaining. This particular boat has a fire suppressing system as well, so that needs maintaining. So the engineers kept pretty busy full time. Or you could go and become a cook or a bosun. This is of course your ship, the Royalist. So not many vessels in the fleet have full-time cooks, because quite a lot of the time it's the young people that do the cooking under supervision, but the larger ones do have cooks. So that's also an opportunity. If the sailing itself isn't your thing, but you really like people and looking after people and keeping warm in the galley, then that might be another opportunity for you. Okay, so some of the skills needed for this job. I hopefully gave a pretty good overview of what it's like, what we're doing on board these vessels. So in order to enjoy that, being the adult and guiding the young people to do this, here are some of the skills you need. So empathy, young people might feel homesick, they might feel seasick, they might think, I'm not a sailor, what am I doing here? So you do need to be patient with them and be quite gentle with them. So that's a really important skill. Leadership, evidently, because you're in charge of this whole group of young people that don't know each other. You're also in charge, if you're the skipper, let's say, you're also in charge of the other sea staff, so you have to guide them. You have to make decisions. During the week, more and more of those decisions will be done by the young people themselves. So because we start teaching them navigation and meteorology, and they will start looking at the weather and start deciding where to sail this ship. Resilience, you do have to keep going when things are tough. It can be tiring. You do have to have a sense of fun. It's brilliant fun because you've got young people on board, and it's not all serious. And you know, we do play silly games all sat around the table. It's really good fun. There is a small amount of paperwork for those who aren't very keen, especially if you're the skipper or the mate. There's some paperwork, and obviously for navigation you need a small amount of maths, but it's not particularly difficult. You don't need to be a rocket scientist. You mainly need to be enthusiastic and learn it. The other thing I did mention earlier, that Jack is blind in one eye. There's not really any barrier to what type of people can work on sail training boats. We've got skippers who are dyslexic. We've got skippers who have Asperger's. We've got men, women, any background, LGBT background, anyone really. If you've got empathy, you've got a sense of fun, you like young people and you like the outdoors, then this could be the job for you. This is just an example, one of the skills. learning knots. Benefits of the job, there are some not so great benefits, but the things that make it such a fun job are these. You're out in the fresh air, you're out in nature, you'll see wildlife as you're out there sailing, you meet new people every week, it's great fun, you work with a good team, you see new places every week, brilliant way of seeing the coastline and learning about the UK. You do make an enormous difference. That's almost the biggest benefit, actually, that you do make a huge difference to young people. We see at the start of the week, young people will come on board and they won't look you in the eye, and they'll look at their feet and they'll mumble a bit if you ask them a question. At the end of the week, they're standing up tall, they're looking you in the eye, they're telling you what they're proud of. I steered this ship, I sailed this ship from there to there, and you really can see what a difference it makes. So that's almost the biggest benefit of the job. Some things that are less good, but it wouldn't be fair to not mention them. So it can be tiring. You're away from home a lot. But most vessels have a decent rota. So you'll be perhaps on board for 3 weeks and then you'll have a week off, or less than that, on board for 2 weeks, have a week off, or you have the weekend off. And you do, in winter, get a bit more time ashore because you're doing maintenance, for example, on the vessel. You're not at sea the whole time. So the days are long, but it is brilliant, great fun. Okay, so in a minute, I will show you our website, which again, I'll have to change something around on the view here. There are some case studies from some skippers on there, but I'm not sure that we'll have time, but I'll send, I can, I hope, probably attach the links to that later, and they're in this presentation anyway, so you could have a look at them later. Okay, right, bear with me while I change the view. Okay, hopefully the window's just moving to show you our website. So this is ASTO's website, uksailtraining.org, and we have a special careers and jobs page on there. I'll come to the qualifications in a minute, but you can see that they're listed briefly here, what qualifications you might need. But what I wanted to show you is just some of the jobs that are currently available. So, for example, this one's a shore-based one, Tall Ships Youth Trust, Director of Youth Development. That's a shore-based job. We're in Society and Sea Cadets, nice boats there. Skipper jobs, cook jobs, project administrator, that's a shore-based job. Volunteers, you can volunteer to help in the winter maintenance. I'm going to skip the other way because there are other jobs available. So this is a public website. You can just take a look of what's on there. Skipper of Tectona. At the moment, there are quite a few advertised because people it tends to be a seasonal thing. So employment might be from March until October because that's when the sailing season is. But most organisations, you'll also be employed through winter. But as I said, you'll be doing vessel maintenance rather than actually sailing. So if you go further down this very page, you'll end up getting some feedback from some current skippers. So some people, Craig here is a bit of a superstar. Actually, he started as a sea cadet. He didn't want to go sailing at all when he was 15, but they made him go sailing on Royalist. He decided he loved it, and he's still here about 15 years later. So he's now skipper of Johanna Lucretia. So if this is of interest, do come back to this website and have a look at those feedbacks from skippers. And they are honest about the bits that are less great, but mostly it's great. I have to say that because I'm trying to encourage you to come into this. Right, let me go back to the presentation. I just have to change this around again. So that's the website, uksailtraining.org, and then /jobs. There we go. Okay. Right. The qualifications you need. So we talked about the skills. These are the qualifications. So obviously, depending on which job it is you're doing, but you can start working in sail training almost without any, actually. I think bosun on Royalist might need day skipper, but I'm not even sure they need to have that. So these are all RYA qualifications, yachting qualifications. They are the same throughout the UK. I was asked to mention that there aren't any regional differences. These are all the same. So there are definitely entry-level jobs with day skipper. Yachtmaster coastal you might need if you want to be the mate on a smaller vessel. Yachtmaster offshore you might need if you want to be the skipper on vessels up until 24 meters. So most of the boats I've showed you, you can skipper with a Yachtmaster offshore. There are also engineering qualifications, and there are MCA qualifications for the larger vessels. So how do you go about getting these, and how do you get into sail training? So I mentioned, I'm going to hurry up a bit now because I'm running out of time. I did mention there's a really nice progression. So lots of people.
You've still got plenty of time.
I have. Thank you. Thank you. So there's a really good progression. So lots of people would start, you know, come sailing as a young person, really love it, get invited back, and start initially volunteering a couple of weeks a year. The organisation will start putting them through some qualifications. So, for example, if you guys have sailed on the yachts or on Royalist, you can do your RYA competent crew, which is the first step towards day skipper. You can do your day skipper as well through the Sea Cadets. So you can start getting your entry-level qualifications that way. If you want to go further and start getting your Yachtmaster or your coastal, your Yachtmaster coastal, you will need to do sailing courses with accredited sailing schools. There is a number of miles you need to do in order to achieve those, and there's different ways of doing it. So, for example, you could do a fast track course with a sailing school. So you could do a course at UKSA, which is one of the sailing schools. There's Hamble School of Yachting, there's British Offshore Sailing School, there's many of them. Some of them offer fast track courses, and they will also offer bursaries. So there's usually a cost to these courses, but there's usually bursaries to enable you to do them. UKSA will, if you start from day skipper, they will get you to Yachtmaster offshore in about 4 months. And that's one way of doing it. Then I would say you've then got the qualifications, but you don't necessarily have the experience. So, and you won't necessarily get a job straight away, even though you've got the qualification now, but you don't yet have the experience. So a different way of doing it is to do perhaps a traineeship. So several UK sail training organisations offer, they're similar to apprenticeships, which they call cadetships, interestingly. So you would work on board the vessel. You would start perhaps with a day skipper, and you would work as a watch leader, and they would put you through the RYA qualifications as and when. So you might work on board for 3 months, and then they might send you off for 2 or 3 weeks to do your Yachtmaster coastal. And then you might come back again and work for another season on board, and then you would go back and get your Yachtmaster offshore. So there are several organisations that offer this, and those opportunities will be advertised on that job page I just showed you. So the good thing about that is then that you don't have to pay for the qualifications, but you will get paid because it's like an apprenticeship. You'll be working while you're doing it. And I would say generally that's a good way of doing it because you're also gaining the experience. So by the time you've got your Yachtmaster, doing it this way, you will have done 10,000 miles of sailing. Whereas if you do it through a fast track, I'm not saying don't do it. That is one efficient way. I did that myself, but I had already done a certain amount of miles before that and already had the experience. The third way of doing it, which is actually quite similar to the apprenticeship route, is that we actually offer funding as well for sail training people. So if you're let's say you're already a watch leader or you're already volunteering with an organisation, you can apply to ASTO. We have a thing called the Trinity House Bursary, and you can apply and we will fund those courses for you. So that will be up to Yachtmaster Offshore. You can come back, you can get that qualifications, work for a few years on the vessels up to 24 meters. And then if you decide you really, really want to work on Tenacious, so the big 3-masted vessel, then you can come back and get funding towards those qualifications. Which in fact, certainly one of the skippers of Tenacious currently has had funding from Trinity House. So you won't get it all in one go, but by the time you're, say, you know, you've worked in sail training for 5 or 6 years, you want to start working on the bigger vessels, you can come back and do that. And that's the nice thing about the job, that there's always variety, there's always more you can do. If you know you've done 2 seasons on this particular vessel, you think I want to try something different, then there's a huge amount of variety and new challenges if you want to work on bigger vessels. Okay, that's pretty much it from me. That's just a nice picture. And of course, that's Royalist again. I didn't mention head for heights as a required skill. That's because not most of the vessels you don't go aloft. It's just the square rigged ones. But there we are. Thank you very much.
Okay, everyone, thank you so much for that presentation, Lucy. That was amazing. And thank you so much for joining us tonight. If anybody has any questions, if you could pop them in either the chat or the Q&A, and we'll do our best to get those answered for you. So a couple of minutes just to pop your questions into the chat or the Q&A function. And if not, then we will go for now. But if you do think of any questions after, then please also just drop an email and we will answer that for you as well.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry, go for it. Yeah.
I wasn't sure if that was okay, but there's certainly our website, and am I able to share my email address if anyone has questions? Or I mean, it's on the website. If you look at that and find the info@UK Sail Training, if you've got any questions. Yeah,
no, right, that's perfect. So don't worry if your sound wasn't working perfectly. This webinar is recorded and it will be posted on the training and admin site. So if you speak to your unit and they'll help you find that there, or if not, email us and we will let you know. We do have a question. I don't know, can I complete Yachtmaster through the Sea Cadets?
Gosh, that's a good question that I don't actually know for certain.
My thought on it is that you can do the day skipper theory, absolutely. As far as I'm aware, Yachtmaster theory is not available. And I don't know that any of the practical elements of it are available either. But day skipper theory is definitely an offer. So I think that is as far as we go.
Yeah, as I think it's still the same, that on the yachts they can do day skipper for exceptional if you've got already quite a lot of experience, and they occasionally do coastal skipper courses with adult volunteers, but I think you've got to be over 18 for that.
All right, well, thank you for that. So we have someone who is still in school. They are currently 15 and they're doing their day skipper. Do you have any ideas of what I could do before I leave school in terms of training / jobs?
Yes, I mean, some of them take time and it depends where you are, but all those sail training organisations, quite a lot of them will invite volunteers. Yeah, 15 should be okay. You may have to be 16, but a lot of them will invite people to do watch leader training or bosun training. So that's all. That's not Sea Cadet specific, but that's all the sail training organisations. So the best thing to do would be to have a look on our website. There's a separate page I didn't show you, but there's a list of all the different sail training organisations. And if there's one close to you, get in touch and ask them about it.
Just lost you. The question. So we've got someone who's not a fan of small boats. Are they able to go straight into training as a watch leader on a larger boat or ship?
Yes. So the qualifications themselves, the day skipper is usually done on a vessel smaller than 15 meters, which is, so the Sea Cadet yachts are, I think, about 12 meters. So you can go slightly bigger than that, but that's just how the courses are set up, that they have to be on a vessel that size. And same with the yacht master. So you do training and then there's a final exam, and that has to be on a vessel under 15 meters. But once you've done that, you can stick to the bigger boats, because the qualification counts right up until vessels of 24 meters, which is about the size of Royalist, actually. So quite big boats you can skip over the Yachtmaster Offshore.
If anyone's looking for like any perspective on what that size actually means, the typical Sea Cadet ribs or ribcraft, the power boats that you would encounter at the boat stations, are between 4 and 6 meters long. So approximately 2 of them, like end to end, is this sort of size of boat you'd find. Looking through, if we have any more questions, absolutely pop them in the question and answer. If not, we will just hang a little bit a second. No, well, I don't appear to be getting any more questions in just now. But again, if you do think of anything, as Lucy said, her email address is on the website. You're free to contact through there, or if you have any question, you can definitely contact. I'll pop our email address in the chat just now. And any questions you have, please do let us know. If you think of anything after, then we will get back to you. So that is our email address just there. Thank you so much, Lucy,